He was on his way to a billionaire meeting when, stuck in traffic, he saw something that froze his heart. Across the street, his ex-wife was sitting at the bus stop with 3 girls who looked exactly like him. Upon discovering they were his daughters, something inside him changed forever. If you were touched by this beautiful story of resilience and love, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Continuing. The San Francisco traffic was notorious on a good day. Today was not a good day. Ryan Blackwood drummed his fingers against the steering wheel of his Tesla Model S, his other hand gripping his phone as he barked instructions to his executive team. The IPO was less than 3 weeks away, and nothing could derail Nexus Tech's momentum, not after 8 years of relentless work and 3 rounds of venture capital. Listen, Kevin, I don't care what their lawyers are saying. We need those contracts. Signed before close of business today, Ryan said, glancing impatiently at the sea of red brake lights stretching ahead of him toward the financial district. The Series D investors are getting skittish, and we need to show... His voice trailed off as his eyes drifted to the opposite side of Market Street. At first, it was just a glimpse, a woman with honey blonde hair sitting at a bus stop, head bent over her phone. Something about her profile triggered a flash of recognition, but Ryan couldn't place it. Then she looked up, and even at this distance, he knew immediately. Melissa, the woman he'd once planned to spend his life with. The woman who'd left him, or more accurately, the woman he'd driven away 5 years ago when Nexus was just beginning to take off and he couldn't divide his attention. But she wasn't alone. 3 little girls clustered around her, all with the same shade of sandy blonde hair that Ryan had in childhood photos. The oldest looked about 5, the youngest perhaps 3. They were dressed in matching blue dresses, and something in their jawlines, their expressions, sent a bolt of recognition through Ryan's body that was almost physical in its intensity. "Kevin, I'll call you back," he muttered, ending the call, mid-protest from his CFO. The car behind him honked as the light turned green, but Ryan barely registered it. His eyes remained fixed on Melissa and the girls. One of them, the middle one, turned in his direction and Ryan felt his breath catch. It was like looking at his own childhood photos. The same eyes, the same dimpled smile, the same small cleft in the chin that his mother always said was the Blackwood family trademark. "Impossible," he whispered. But the evidence was right in front of him. 3 little girls who looked exactly like him, standing with the woman he had once loved with an intensity that had frightened him. The woman who had tried to contact him dozens of times after their breakup, calls and messages he had blocked and ignored, convinced they were attempts to pull him back into a relationship he couldn't afford to prioritize while building his empire. Without thinking, Ryan swerved the Tesla across 2 lanes of traffic, ignoring the chorus of angry horns. He double-parked beside a fire hydrant and jumped out, leaving the door open behind him. "Sir, you can't park there," someone called out, but Ryan was already halfway across the street, dodging through traffic. Melissa saw him when he was 20. Feet away. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock to something that looked like fear. She stood up quickly, gathering the girls closer to her side. "Melissa," Ryan called out, his voice sounding strange even to himself. "Ryan," she replied, her voice flat, controlled. She drew the girls protectively against her, a gesture that made his stomach twist. Up close, there was no denying it. The 3 girls were miniature versions of himself. The oldest had his serious expression, the direct gaze that his business partners often commented on. The middle one had his smile, the one his mother said could charm birds from trees. And the youngest, she had the small scar above her right eyebrow, the exact shape and location as the one Ryan had gotten falling from a tree when he was 4. "These are..." Ryan couldn't finish the sentence. "My daughters," Melissa said firmly, her eyes warning him not to push further. "Not here, not now." "Mom, who's that?" asked the oldest girl, her blue eyes, Ryan's eyes, studying him with an unsettling perceptiveness. A bus pulled up to the curb, its brakes hissing as it came to a stop. "No one, Charlotte. Just someone Mommy used to know," Melissa said hurriedly, gathering their bags. "Come on, girls, this is our bus." "Melissa, wait," Ryan said, reaching out but stopping short of touching her. "We need to talk." "5 years too late, Ryan," she said, her voice trembling slightly as she guided the girls toward the open bus doors. 5 years too late. "Please," Ryan said, the word foreign on his tongue. Ryan Blackwood didn't say please. Ryan Blackwood made demands that were met. Ryan Blackwood closed billion-dollar deals over breakfast. Ryan Blackwood didn't beg, except now he was. Melissa hesitated, then reached into her purse and scribbled something on a receipt. She thrust it at him as she guided the girls onto the bus. "If you really want to talk, text me. But Ryan?" Her eyes hardened. "Don't contact me unless you're absolutely sure. These girls are my world, and I won't let anyone hurt them, not even their father." The bus doors closed, and Ryan stood frozen on the sidewalk, the scrap of paper clutched in his hand, watching as the bus merged into traffic and disappeared around a corner. The last thing he saw was the youngest girl's face pressed against the window, her eyes, his eyes, studying him with innocent curiosity. Ryan returned to his car in a daze, oblivious to the parking ticket already tucked under his windshield wiper. He sat behind the wheel, staring at the 10 digits Melissa had scrawled across the back of a grocery store receipt. Daughters. He had daughters, 3 of them. His phone buzzed incessantly, Kevin calling back, his assistant with updates about the afternoon's meetings, his lawyer about the IPO paperwork, the life he had built, the life that had consumed him so completely that he had blocked out everything else. For the first time in 5 years, Ryan Blackwood ignored every call. The traffic had cleared somewhat, but he couldn't bring himself to start the car. His mind raced through memories of Melissa's attempts to reach him after their breakup. The calls he'd blocked, the emails he'd filtered to spam, the one time she'd come to his office and he'd had security escort her out, telling himself it was better for both of them to make the break clean. Clean for him, perhaps. But she had been trying to tell him something vital, something that had changed both their lives forever. He took out his phone and opened his contact list, scrolling until he found his private investigator, the man he kept on retainer for business, background checks and competitor research. It took only a few minutes to relay Melissa's full name and the little information he had. The PI promised results within 24 hours. By the time Ryan finally put his car in drive and pulled away from the curb, he was 90 minutes late for his meeting. For the first time since founding Nexus Tech, he didn't care. His executive assistant, Diane, nearly collapsed with relief when he walked into the office. "Ryan, where have you been? The Matsumoto team has been waiting for an hour and the lawyers are threatening to walk if you don't sign those documents by—" "Cancel everything," Ryan said, his voice distant even to his own ears. "What?" Diane blinked at him, 20 years of professional composure momentarily abandoned. "Ryan, you can't just cancel everything." He walked past her into his corner office with its sweeping views of the San Francisco Bay. "I'm taking the rest of the day. But the IPO prep can wait until tomorrow." Ryan sat down heavily in his chair, still seeing those 3 little faces, still hearing Melissa's words. 5 years too late. After Diane left, closing the door with a concerned backward glance, Ryan found himself opening his desk drawer and pulling out the small velvet box he'd kept there for over 5 years. The engagement ring he'd bought for Melissa, but never given her. He'd been waiting for the right time, after the first round of funding, after the product launch, after the Series B financing. There was always a next milestone, always a reason to wait. By the time he'd realized what he'd lost, she was gone. Her number changed, her social media profiles locked or deleted. He'd told himself it was for the best, that he needed to focus on building Nexus, on creating the legacy that would define him. Now, staring at the diamond ring that had sat untouched while he built his empire, Ryan understood with devastating clarity what his real legacy was. 3 little girls growing up without knowing their father, and a woman who had every reason to hate him. He picked up his phone and composed a text to the number Melissa had given him. "It's Ryan. We need to talk, please." His finger hovered over the send button for a full minute before he finally pressed it, sending the message into the void. When no response came after 30 minutes, he sent another. I understand if you don't want to see me, but I need to. Know about them, please, Melissa. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Ryan sat at his desk, going through the motions of reviewing documents, but his mind kept returning to those three little faces, to all he had missed. First steps, first words, first days of school. His phone pinged at 7:43 p.m., a text from Melissa. Tomorrow. Dolores Park, 10 a.m., the playground. Just you and me, Ryan, the girls won't be there. Ryan texted back immediately. I'll be there. That night, in his penthouse apartment with its minimalist furnishings and spectacular night views, Ryan couldn't sleep. For the first time, the success he'd built seemed hollow, the spaces empty rather than clean. He paced the polished concrete floors until dawn, haunted by faces that looked like his own, wondering what he had missed, and terrified of what would happen next. Ryan arrived at Dolores Park 45 minutes early, something he'd never done for any business meeting in his life. The playground was already busy with children and their caretakers, the sounds of laughter and excited shrieks filling the air. He sat on a bench with a clear view of the entrance, his usual confident posture replaced by an anxious tension that had him checking his watch every few minutes. He'd cancelled his morning meetings, another unprecedented move that had sent ripples of concern through Nexus Tech. Kevin had called him 3 times already, each voicemail more urgent than the last. The IPO paperwork needed his signature. The investors wanted reassurances. The tech journalists were requesting interviews. The empire he'd built was demanding his attention, but for once, Ryan couldn't bring himself to care. At precisely 10 hours, ASM he saw her walking up the path. Melissa looked different than she had the day before, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a light blue sweater instead of the business attire she'd had on at the bus stop. She moved with the same graceful confidence he remembered, but there was a wariness in her expression that hadn't been there before. Ryan stood as she approached, unsure of the appropriate greeting for a woman he'd once loved, then abandoned, who was now the mother of his children. "You look well," he said finally, the corporate platitude sounding hollow even to his own ears. "Let's sit," Melissa replied, ignoring the comment as she took a seat on the bench, maintaining a careful distance between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Around them, children played and parents chatted, a normal day in the park that stood in stark contrast to the earthquake happening in Ryan's life. "How old are they?" Ryan asked finally. "Charlotte is 5, Emma is 4, and Lily just turned 3 in February." Melissa's voice was steady, clinical almost, as if she were giving a business report rather than talking about their daughters. "3 daughters," Ryan said, the reality of it still sinking in. "And they're mine." "Yes, Ryan, they're all yours." A flash of anger crossed Melissa's face. "Is that really what you wanted to ask me? If I was sleeping with someone else?" "No, I didn't mean—" Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, I'm still trying to process it." "Well, I've had 5 years to process it," Melissa said, her composure cracking slightly. 5 years of raising them alone while you built your tech empire. 5 years of doctor's appointments and nightmares and first steps and preschool applications, all alone. "You should have told me," Ryan said, immediately regretting the accusatory tone. "I tried." Melissa's voice rose enough that a couple nearby glanced over. She lowered it again with visible effort. "I tried everything, Ryan. I called, I texted, I emailed. I came to your office and you had security escort me out. You blocked my number. You blocked me on every platform. What was I supposed to do, take out a billboard?" The guilt hit Ryan like a physical blow. He remembered that day at the office, Melissa in tears as the security guard led her to the elevator, while he watched from his glass-walled office, telling himself it was better this way, cleaner. He'd been so focused on the next funding round, so determined not to let anything or anyone distract him from building Nexus. "I thought," Ryan began, then stopped, forcing himself to be honest. "I thought you were trying to get back together. I thought you were a distraction I couldn't afford." "A distraction," Melissa repeated, the word bitter on her tongue. "That's what I was. To you? What about when I told your assistant I was pregnant? Did she even give you that message? Ryan felt cold. Diane never told me that. Of course she didn't. She was under strict instructions to shield you from anything that might impact your precious focus. Melissa shook her head. After a while, I gave up. I decided my daughters deserved better than a father who didn't want to know them. I didn't know, Ryan said softly. I swear, Melissa, if I had known— You would have what? She challenged. Put your IPO on hold? Stepped back from your company? Somehow I doubt that. Ryan couldn't argue. 5 years ago, he might have seen children as complications, obstacles to his ambition. He couldn't honestly say he would have embraced fatherhood then, but now, seeing those little girls who looked so much like him, knowing they had grown up without him— Tell me about them, he said instead. Please. Something in his voice must have reached her because Melissa's expression softened slightly. Charlotte is the oldest. She's serious and protective, always looking out for her sisters. She started kindergarten and already reading at a second-grade level. A hint of pride crept into Melissa's voice. Emma is the middle one. She's sweet and creative, always drawing or making up stories. She has your smile and your charm. Ryan felt a pang at that, the first connection to these children he'd never known. And Lily? He asked. Melissa's expression changed, a shadow crossing her face. Lily is our fighter. What do you mean? Melissa took a deep breath. Lily was born with a congenital heart defect, tetralogy of Fallot. She had her first open-heart surgery when she was 4 months old. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. Surgery? At 4 months? She'll need at least one more as she grows. She sees a cardiologist every 3 months. Melissa's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. She's strong, though. Nothing keeps her down for long. The doctors say she's doing really well. Ryan struggled to find words. His daughter, his youngest daughter, had been through heart surgery while he was celebrating a successful Series C funding round, completely oblivious. I should have been there, he said finally, the inadequacy of the words striking him even as he spoke them. Yes, you should have, Melissa agreed, but without the heat from earlier. But you weren't, and we managed. How? Ryan asked. I mean financially, heart surgery, specialists. I have good insurance through my job, and my parents helped. Her chin lifted slightly. I didn't need your money, Ryan. That's not why I tried to find you. I know that, he said quickly. That's not what I meant. I should have been helping all this time. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the children play. What do the girls know about me? Ryan asked eventually. Not much, Melissa admitted. Charlotte has asked about her father. I told her that he wasn't able to be with us, but that didn't mean he wouldn't have loved her if he could have been. The younger ones haven't really asked yet. The past tense, wouldn't have loved her, wasn't lost on Ryan. In Melissa's mind, he was already a hypothetical, a might-have-been father rather than a real one. I want to meet them, Ryan said suddenly. Properly, I mean, not at a bus stop. Melissa studied him for a long moment. Why now, Ryan? Why after all this time? Is it just the shock, the novelty, because these girls have been through enough? They don't need someone showing up in their lives only to disappear again when things get complicated or when your company needs you more. It's not like that, Ryan insisted, though he wasn't sure himself what it was like. He only knew that since yesterday, something fundamental had shifted in him. I need to know them. And what happens when your IPO demands your attention? Or when one of them gets sick in the middle of your board meeting? Or when school concerts conflict with investor dinners? Melissa's questions were pointed, hitting exactly where they should. Parenting isn't a part-time hobby, Ryan. It's all-consuming. I understand that. Do you? Because 5 years ago you couldn't make room in your life for a girlfriend who needed more than dinner reservations and weekend getaways. How are you going to make room for 3 children? Ryan had no immediate answer. His life was structured around Nexus Tech, around being available 24/7, around making decisions that affected hundreds of employees and millions in investment. The idea of restructuring it around 3 small children was terrifying, and yet the alternative, walking away, pretending he'd never seen them at that bus stop, was somehow even more terrifying. "I don't know exactly how I'll do it," he admitted finally. "But I know I have to try. Please, Melissa, give me a chance to know them." Melissa looked out at the playground, her expression troubled. "I'm not going to introduce you as their father right away. That would be too confusing for them. But I could introduce you as a friend, someone I used to know. We could meet somewhere casual, like for ice cream." Relief flooded through Ryan. Thank you. "Don't thank me yet," Melissa warned. "This is just a first meeting. I'm not promising anything beyond that. If I see any sign that this is going to hurt them, it stops immediately." "I understand. Do you? Because I need you to be very clear about this, Ryan. These girls are my whole world. I have protected them and nurtured them, and been there for every tear and every triumph. I will not let anyone hurt them, not even the man who helped create them." The fierceness in her eyes reminded Ryan of why he'd fallen in love with her. In the first place, her strength, her unwavering determination. Those were qualities he'd admired in her then, qualities he now saw were essential for raising their daughters alone. "I won't hurt them," he promised, "and if I start to, you can end it. No questions asked." Melissa nodded, seemingly satisfied for now. "Saturday. There's an ice cream shop on Valencia Street, Smitten, 2 o'clock. I'll be there." As Melissa stood to leave, Ryan asked one more question. What was she like, Lily, after her surgery? Something softened in Melissa's expression. Brave. So incredibly brave. She has your determination, Ryan. Once she decides to do something, nothing stops her. The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and Ryan felt a corresponding swell of emotion for a child he hadn't even properly met yet. "Saturday, then," Melissa said, turning to go. "Melissa," Ryan called after her. When she turned back, he asked, "Why did you agree to this? After everything, you could have just gotten back on that bus yesterday and made sure I never found you again. Why give me this chance?" She considered the question for a moment. "Because despite everything, Ryan, they deserve to know where they come from. And maybe, just maybe, you deserve a chance to be more than the man who chose his company over everything else." With that, she walked away, leaving Ryan alone on the bench, surrounded by families and faced with the reality that somewhere in this city were 3 little girls who shared his blood, his features, his DNA, but who were complete strangers to him. And somehow, impossible as it seemed, he had to find a way to be worthy of them. Ryan stood outside Smitten Ice Cream 15 minutes early on Saturday, having changed his outfit 3 times before leaving his penthouse. He'd finally settled on dark jeans and a casual button-down shirt, an attempt to look approachable, rather than like the tech CEO whose face occasionally appeared in business magazines. For the 3rd time in 5 minutes, he checked his phone. No new messages from Melissa, no last-minute cancellations. This was happening. He was about to meet his daughters, properly this time. The past 3 days had been a blur of distracted meetings and late-night research. Ryan had found himself Googling congenital heart defects at 2 a.m., poring over medical websites to understand what Lily had been through. He'd read about tetralogy of Fallot until his eyes burned, memorizing terms like pulmonary stenosis and ventricular septal defect. The thought of his tiny daughter enduring open-heart surgery made his chest ache with a pain he'd never experienced before. During the day, he'd gone through the motions at Nexus, signing paperwork and attending meetings, but his mind had been elsewhere. His executive team had noticed. Kevin had even pulled him aside to ask if everything was all right. Ryan had brushed him off with vague reassurances, not ready to explain a situation he barely understood himself. Now, as he waited on Valencia Street, watching families and couples stroll past in the weekend sunshine, Ryan felt more nervous than he had before his first pitch to venture capitalists. This wasn't about convincing someone to invest millions in his company. This was about 3 little lives that were inextricably connected to his own, whether he'd known it or not. At precisely 2 o'clock, he saw them approaching. Melissa was holding the youngest girl's hand, Lily, the one with the heart condition. The middle child, Emma, skipped alongside them, while Charlotte, the oldest, walked with the serious demeanor Ryan recognized from his own childhood photos. They were even more beautiful in the daylight, their features clearer, the resemblance to him unmistakable. Charlotte had his eyes and the determined set of his jaw. Emma had his smile wide and slightly crooked, and Lily, the smallest, had his cleft chin and the cowlick in her sandy blonde hair that Ryan had fought with his entire childhood. "Hi," Ryan said as they approached, his voice catching slightly. "Hello," Melissa replied, her tone carefully neutral. She knelt down to the girl's level. "Charlotte, Emma, Lily, this is Mr. Blackwood. He's an old friend of Mommy's." "You can call me Ryan," he said quickly, kneeling down as well, bringing himself to their eye level. Charlotte studied him with a directness that was unsettling in a 5-year-old. "How come we never met you before if you're Mommy's friend?" Ryan glanced at Melissa, uncertain how to answer. "Ryan lives very far away," Melissa said smoothly. "He's visiting San Francisco for work." "Where do you live?" Charlotte pressed, clearly the interrogator of the group. "I actually live here now," Ryan said, unwilling to start this relationship with a lie, even a small one. "But I used to live far away, and I travel a lot for work." "What kind of work?" Charlotte continued while her sisters remained quiet, assessing him in their own ways. "I make computer programs," Ryan said, simplifying vastly. "Things that help people do their jobs better." "My mommy works with computers too," Emma piped up, her voice sweeter than her sister's. "She makes them not be broken." Ryan looked at Melissa questioningly. "I'm an IT specialist for a healthcare company," she explained. "Not exactly the glamorous world of tech startups, but it pays the bills and has good benefits." "Ice cream?" Lily asked hopefully, tugging at her mother's hand and breaking the tension. Ryan smiled at her. "Yes, let's get ice cream. What's your favorite flavor?" "Strawberry," Lily declared without hesitation. Inside the shop, Ryan watched as each girl carefully considered the flavors, their small faces serious with concentration. Charlotte eventually chose mint chip, Emma selected cookies and cream, and Lily stayed true to her strawberry declaration. Melissa opted for salted caramel while Ryan chose vanilla. They found a table near the window, the girls sitting between Ryan and Melissa like a buffer zone. For a few minutes, everyone focused on their ice cream, the silence punctuated only by Lily's happy sighs as she tackled her strawberry scoop. "Do you have any kids?" Charlotte asked suddenly, fixing Ryan with her direct gaze. Ryan nearly choked on his ice cream. He looked at Melissa, who gave a slight shake of her head, her eyes warning him to tread carefully. "No," he said finally. "I don't have any children." "How come?" Charlotte persisted. "Don't you like kids?" Ryan struggled to find the right words. "I never thought I had time for children. I was always very busy with work. Mommy works and she has time for us," Emma pointed out reasonably. "You're right," Ryan admitted. "I guess I didn't know how important having kids could be." "It's the most important," Lily declared firmly, pink ice cream smeared across her chin. Ryan smiled, reaching for a napkin and instinctively wiping Lily's face. The little girl allowed it with surprising ease, and something in Ryan's chest tightened at this small parental gesture, his first. "What do you girls like to do for fun?" he asked, eager to know more about them. That simple question unleashed a torrent of information. Charlotte loved reading and had recently started a book club with her kindergarten friends. Emma was passionate about art and could spend hours with her markers and paper. Lily was obsessed with anything to do with space, planets, stars, astronauts. "I'm going to be an astronaut when I grow up," Lily informed Ryan solemnly, "even though my heart is special." Ryan glanced at Melissa, who was watching the interaction. Carefully. "Special heart just means extra brave," Ryan said, the words coming from somewhere deep inside him. "And astronauts need to be very brave." Lily beamed at him and Ryan felt something shift in his universe. As the afternoon progressed, Ryan found himself completely absorbed in their world. Charlotte showed him her reading app, pointing out the chapter books she'd finished. Emma described in detail the art project she was working on at preschool. Lily simply climbed onto the chair next to him after finishing her ice cream, leaning against his arm with the easy trust of a 3-year-old. Ryan caught Melissa watching them, her expression a complex mix of emotions, protectiveness, certainly, but also something that might have been regret, or perhaps relief that the Girls were responding so well. "We should probably head home soon," Melissa said eventually. "Lily needs her nap and Emma has a playdate later." "Can Ryan come to my playdate?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with hope. "Not today, sweetie," Melissa said gently, "but maybe we'll see Ryan again another time." "Will we?" Charlotte asked, looking between the adults with that perceptive gaze that seemed to see more than a 5-year-old should. "If your mom says it's okay," Ryan said carefully, "I'd like that very much." Outside the ice cream shop, the moment of parting arrived too soon. Ryan knelt down again to say goodbye to each girl. Charlotte gave him a formal handshake that made him smile. Emma threw her arms around his neck in an enthusiastic hug that caught him by surprise. And Lily, the smallest, simply patted his cheek with her tiny hand. "Bye, Ryan," she said. "I like you." "I like you too, Lily," Ryan replied, his voice thick with emotion. As Melissa guided the girls toward the bus stop, Ryan called after her, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" "Just a minute." Melissa hesitated, then told the girls to wait on a nearby bench where she could see them. She walked back to Ryan, her expression guarded. "Thank you," Ryan said simply, "for today, for letting me meet them." "They seem to like you," Melissa acknowledged, a hint of surprise in her voice. "They're amazing, Melissa, all 3 of them. You've done an incredible job." Something in her expression softened. "It hasn't been easy." "I want to see them again," Ryan said. "Regularly, if you'll allow it, and I want to help, financially, I mean. They're my daughters, too. I should be contributing to their care, especially with Lily's medical needs." Melissa studied him for a long moment. "This isn't just about money, Ryan. I know that. I'm not trying to buy my way into their lives, but I've missed 5 years of supporting them. Let me at least do this part right." After a moment, she nodded. "We can discuss the details later. As for seeing them again, let's take it slow, maybe next weekend. There's a children's science museum in Golden Gate Park. Lily loves the planetarium there." "I'd like that," Ryan said, relief washing through him. "Very much." "I should warn you," Melissa added, "once you're in their lives, you need to stay there. No disappearing when things get complicated or when your IPO demands your attention. They deserve consistency." "I understand," Ryan said, and he meant it. In just one afternoon, these 3 little girls had carved out spaces in his heart that he hadn't known existed. The idea of walking away from them now seemed impossible. As Ryan watched Melissa rejoin the girls and head toward the bus stop, he felt both lighter and heavier than he had in years. Lighter because something long missing had been found, heavier because the responsibility of 3 young lives now rested partly on his shoulders. He took out his phone to call his driver, but instead found himself scrolling through his calendar, the packed schedule of meetings, conferences, and business dinners that had defined his life for so long. For the first time, he saw it through different eyes. Each blocked-out hour represented time he couldn't spend with Charlotte, Emma, and Lily. Each weekend conference was a potential science museum visit missed. Something would have to change. The question was, how much was he willing to reshape? The life he'd built to make room for the daughters he'd never known. Back at his penthouse, Ryan found himself standing in his spare bedroom, a minimalist space he'd used occasionally as a home office. In his mind's eye, he could see it transformed. 3 beds, perhaps, or at least a place where the girls could visit. Toys instead of his spare laptop. Children's books instead of business journals. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it filled him with a strange, unfamiliar excitement. He picked up his phone and called Kevin, his CFO. "I need to rearrange some things," he said without preamble. "Clear my schedule for next weekend. Family emergency." The word family felt foreign on his tongue, but also right in a way that nothing at Nexus Tech ever had. That night, as Ryan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he replayed the afternoon in his mind. Charlotte's penetrating questions, Emma's enthusiastic hug, Lily's small hand patting his cheek. "I like you," she had said, with the simple honesty of a 3-year-old. For the first time in years, Ryan Blackwood fell asleep with a smile on, his face dreaming not of stock prices and market shares, but of strawberry ice cream and 3 little girls with his eyes, his smile, and his cleft chin. 3 weeks into his new role as a part-time presence in his daughters' lives, Ryan found himself sitting on a bench at Golden Gate Park, watching Charlotte teach Lily how to feed the ducks, while Emma sketched the scene in a small notebook. These Saturday outings had quickly become the highlight of his week, moments of normalcy that contrasted sharply with the high-pressure world of Nexus Tech. He'd been surprised at how naturally the girls had accepted him into their routine. Charlotte remained somewhat reserved, her analytical mind clearly trying to figure out exactly where this new adult fit into their lives. Emma had embraced him completely, greeting him with enthusiastic hugs and endless stories about her week. Lily, the youngest, had simply decided he belonged, often reaching for his hand without hesitation or climbing onto his lap when she was tired. "They're not usually this comfortable with new people," Melissa had commented the previous weekend, watching as Lily fell asleep against Ryan's chest during an afternoon at the playground. "Especially Lily. She's usually quite shy around men." Ryan had felt a surge of pride at that, though he knew he hadn't earned it. Some deeper connection, blood, genetics, whatever it was, had made these children recognize something in him that felt safe and familiar. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Kevin or Diane with another urgent matter that couldn't wait. Until Monday. Ryan ignored it. He'd made a rule for these Saturday outings. No work calls, no emails, no business emergencies. For these few precious hours each week, he was just Ryan, not the CEO of Nexus Tech. The IPO preparations continued to consume his weekdays, with the public offering now scheduled for the following month. Ryan still worked 14-hour days Monday through Friday, but he'd become fiercely protective of his weekends. His executive team had noticed the change, but attributed it to pre-IPO stress. Only Diane, who had been his assistant for 7 years, suspected there was something more significant happening in her boss's life. "You seem different," she had remarked earlier that week, after Ryan rescheduled a Sunday strategy session that would have conflicted with a promise to take the girls to a children's theatre production. "Different how?" Ryan had asked, not meeting her eyes as he shuffled through paperwork. "Happier," Diane had said simply. "Less driven." Ryan hadn't known how to respond to that. Was he less driven, or had his drive simply found a new direction? The questions lingered as he watched his daughters by the pond. His daughters. He still struggled to fully comprehend it. 3 lives that carried his DNA, his features, his mannerisms, lives that had been proceeding without him for years while he built his empire of code and capital. "Ryan," Emma called, running over to show him her drawing. "Look what I made." He examined the colorful sketch with genuine admiration. At 4 years old, Emma already showed remarkable talent, capturing not just the shapes, but somehow the essence of her sisters feeding the ducks. "This is beautiful, Emma," he said, meaning it. "You're a real artist." She beamed at him, her smile, his smile, lighting up her whole face. "Can I draw you next?" "I'd be honored," Ryan replied, settling into a pose that made Emma giggle. As Emma sketched, Ryan glanced toward Melissa, who sat at a nearby table, her attention focused on her phone. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, and something in her expression made Ryan uneasy. After a few minutes, she put the phone away and walked over to join them, but the troubled look remained. "Everything okay?" Ryan asked quietly, as Emma continued her artistic efforts. "Fine," Melissa said quickly, then sighed. "Actually, no, but we can talk about it later." Ryan nodded, respecting her boundary, but his mind raced with possibilities. Was it about Lily's health, financial problems, something to do with him and his presence in the girls' lives? The remainder of the afternoon passed pleasantly, with a picnic lunch Melissa had packed and a walk through the botanical gardens. By late afternoon, Lily was yawning, and even energetic Emma was showing signs of fatigue. "We should head home," Melissa announced. "It's getting close to dinner time." As they packed up their belongings, Ryan helped Charlotte fold the picnic blanket, using the moment of relative privacy to ask, "Would you like me to come along? I could help with dinner, maybe read bedtime stories." He'd been careful not to push too hard for additional time with the girls, respecting Melissa's pace. So far, their interactions had been limited to these weekend outings in public places. Charlotte looked at him thoughtfully. Do you know how to make mac and cheese? The real kind, not from a box? Ryan laughed. I can learn. That's our Saturday. Dinner, Charlotte informed him seriously. It's tradition. Maybe another time, Ryan, Melissa interjected, having overheard the exchange. But she hesitated, then continued. If you're free tomorrow, there's something I need to discuss with you. You could come over for coffee after the girls have their breakfast. Ryan felt a flutter of anxiety at her tone, but nodded. Of course. What? Time? Around 10? We're in the Mission District on Valencia and 23rd. I'll be there. The next morning, Ryan found himself standing outside a modest Victorian apartment building, feeling strangely nervous. This was Melissa's home, where his daughters lived, played, slept, grew. Their domain, not his. He rang the buzzer for apartment 3B. Emma's voice came through the intercom. Who is it? It's Ryan, he answered. A squeal of delight preceded, the buzzer sounding, and Ryan made his way up to the 3rd floor. The door to 3B was already open, with Emma bouncing excitedly in the doorway. You came to our house, she exclaimed, grabbing his hand and pulling him inside. Come see my room. I have all my pictures on the wall. The apartment was small but warm, filled with evidence of the girls' presence. Toys neatly organized in bins, children's books on low shelves, artwork displayed on the refrigerator. It was nothing like Ryan's sleek, minimalist penthouse, but it immediately felt more like a home than his own place ever had. Emma, let Ryan come in properly first, Melissa called from the kitchen. She appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Sorry about that. They're excited to have a visitor. Our neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, comes over sometimes, Charlotte explained, appearing from what Ryan assumed was her bedroom. And Grandma and Grandpa visit at Christmas, but we don't have many guests. Well, I'm honored to be here, Ryan said, meaning it. Lily emerged from the same room as Charlotte, her face lighting up when she saw Ryan. Without hesitation, she ran to him and wrapped her arms around his legs in a hug. The simple gesture of affection made his throat tight. Girls, why don't you show Ryan your rooms while I finish cleaning up the breakfast dishes? Melissa suggested. Then you can watch your Sunday morning show, while Ryan and I have coffee and talk. The grand tour took nearly 30 minutes as each girl proudly showed off her space. The apartment had only 2 bedrooms. Melissa had one while the girls shared the other, with 3 small beds arranged to give each child her own corner. Charlotte's area was neat and organized, with books carefully arranged by size. Emma's corner was an explosion of color and creativity, with drawings covering every available surface. Lily's space was adorned with glow-in-the-dark stars and planet mobiles hanging from the ceiling. Mom put those up because I'm scared of the dark. Sometimes, Lily confided, the stars make it better. Eventually, Melissa called the girls to the living room, setting them up with what appeared to be a weekly ritual, a children's science program that even Charlotte seemed excited about. With the girls settled, she led Ryan to the small kitchen table. They're amazing, Ryan said, as Melissa poured coffee into mismatched mugs. This whole place is. You've created such a warm home for them. It's not much, Melissa said, glancing around the modest kitchen. Especially compared to what you're used to. It's perfect, Ryan insisted. They're happy here, that's what matters. Melissa sat across from him, wrapping her hands around her mug. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Their happiness, their future. The serious tone made Ryan tense. What's going on? Melissa? She took a deep breath. I've been offered a job, a significant promotion with nearly double my current salary and a leadership role. That's wonderful, Ryan said, genuinely pleased for her. Congratulations. The job is in Boston, Melissa continued, watching his face carefully. At the corporate headquarters. Ryan felt as though someone had just punched him in the stomach. Boston? That's 3,000 miles away, Melissa finished for him. I know. The implications crashed over Ryan like a wave. Just as he was building relationships with his daughters, they would be moving across the country. The Saturday outings, the gradual integration into their lives, the bedtime stories he'd been hoping to read, all of it would end. "When would you go?" he asked, his voice tight. "That's the complicated part. They need me to start in 4 weeks." 4 weeks, Ryan repeated numbly. "That's very soon." "I know. And I haven't accepted yet." Melissa ran a hand through her hair, a gesture of frustration Ryan remembered from their time together. "This opportunity, it's what I've been working toward for years. Better pay, better benefits, a chance to lead a department instead of just being part of one. It would mean private school for the girls, a college fund that isn't just wishful thinking, maybe even a house with a yard instead of this apartment." "You don't need to explain why it's a good opportunity," Ryan said quietly. "I understand ambition, remember?" Melissa gave him a sad smile. "Yes, you certainly do." They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the children's program filtering in from the living room. "What about Lily's medical care?" Ryan asked. "Would you have to find all new doctors in Boston?" "That's one of my concerns," Melissa admitted. "She has an excellent cardiology team here. The Children's Hospital in Boston is world-class, but it would mean starting over with new specialists, building new relationships." Another silence fell between them, heavier this time. "What are you going to do?" Ryan finally asked. Melissa looked down at her coffee. "That's what I've been struggling with, and that's partly why I wanted to talk to you. This affects you now too, as their father." The acknowledgement, the first time Melissa had explicitly referred to him as the girl's father, wasn't lost on Ryan. "What if—" Ryan started, then paused, considering the wild idea that had just formed in his mind. "What if the girl stayed with me while you get settled in Boston?" Melissa's head snapped up. "What?" "Just temporarily," Ryan hastened to add. "You could go to Boston, find a place to live, get established in your new role, and then the girls could join you once everything is stable. It would give Lily continuity with her medical team for a few more months, and the older girls wouldn't have to change schools mid-year." "Ryan, you barely know them," Melissa said, her voice incredulous. "You've spent a total of, 4 Saturdays with them? You live in a bachelor penthouse and work 14-hour days. How would you possibly manage 3 young children?" "I'd make changes," Ryan said, the idea taking hold even as he spoke it aloud. "I could find a more suitable place to live, hire help if needed, adjust my work schedule." "Just like that?" Melissa sounded skeptical. "You'd upend your entire life right before your company goes public?" "Yes," Ryan said, surprising himself with his certainty. "Yes, I would." Melissa studied him for a long moment. "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because they're my daughters," Ryan said simply. "And because I've already missed 5 years, I don't want to miss any more." Something shifted in Melissa's expression. Not quite acceptance, but perhaps the beginning of consideration. "It wouldn't be permanent," Ryan continued. "Just until you're settled. A few months, maybe. And we could work out a long-term arrangement afterward. Holidays, summers. I have the resources to fly them to Boston regularly, or to come visit them there." "You're serious about this?" Melissa said, a statement rather than a question. "Completely serious." "And what about your IPO? Your company? The empire you've built?" "It will have to adapt," Ryan said, with a conviction that felt new and yet somehow right. "I'm not saying it will be easy, but these girls, our daughters, they matter more." Melissa sat back in her chair, visibly processing. "I would need to think about this. Talk to a lawyer about temporary custody arrangements. Consider what's truly best for the girls." "Of course," Ryan agreed. "Take whatever time you need, but the offer stands." From the living room came the sound of Lily's laughter, followed by Emma's. Ryan and Melissa both turned toward the sound, their faces softening. "They'd miss you terribly," Ryan said quietly. "If they went to Boston right away, they'd be adjusting to a new home, new school, new everything, all while missing their mother." "And what about missing their father?" Melissa countered. "They've only just met you. If they stay here while I go, they'll be separating from the only consistent parent they've ever known." "I know," Ryan acknowledged. "It's not a perfect solution. But at least this way, they'd have stability in their environment while adjusting to one parental change, rather than having everything change at once." Melissa nodded slowly. "There's some logic to that." She sighed heavily. I need to think and pray, and probably make some lists because that's how I process. Take all the time you need, Ryan repeated. But Melissa, whatever you decide, I want you to know I'm in their lives now. Whether they're here or in Boston or anywhere else, I'm going to be their father. I'm going to be present. Melissa looked at him for a long moment, as if truly seeing him for the first time in years. You've changed, Ryan Blackwood. I'm trying to, he admitted. For them, for myself. The program in the living room ended, and the sound of small feet running toward the kitchen signaled the end of their private conversation. Mom, Ryan, can we go to the park now? Emma called as she burst into the kitchen, her sisters close behind. Ryan looked at Melissa, letting her take the lead. I think that sounds like a wonderful idea, Melissa said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Let's all go to the park. As they gathered jackets and shoes, Ryan caught Melissa watching the girls with a mixture of love and heartache, the weight of her decision visible in her expression. The opportunity in Boston represented everything she'd worked for: financial security, career advancement, a better future for her daughters, but it came at a significant cost. And as for Ryan, the suggestion he'd just made would completely transform his carefully constructed life. He thought of the IPO preparations, the investor meetings, the media interviews scheduled for the coming weeks. All of it suddenly seemed less important than making sure his daughters had stability during a time of change. Whatever Melissa decided, Ryan knew one thing with absolute certainty: nothing would ever be the same again. Daddy, can you make my hair like Elsa's? Lily asked, standing in the doorway of Ryan's bedroom at 6:15 a.m., clutching a hairbrush and several colorful hair ties. The word Daddy still gave Ryan a jolt every time he heard it. It had been 3 weeks since the girls had moved into his hastily rented house in Noe Valley, a charming 4-bedroom Victorian that was nothing like his sleek downtown penthouse. 3 weeks since Melissa had flown to Boston after tearful goodbyes and promises to video chat every night. 3 weeks of the most exhausting, exhilarating, and transformative experience of Ryan's life. Elsa hair, huh? Ryan said, rubbing sleep from his eyes as he sat up in bed. He'd been up until midnight reviewing IPO documents, and his alarm wasn't set to go off for another 45 minutes. Let me guess, you have to look perfect for preschool today? Lily nodded solemnly, her blonde hair already a tangled mess from sleep. Miss Patricia is doing Princess Day. Well, we can't disappoint Miss Patricia, Ryan said, swinging his legs out of bed. Let's see what we can do, Princess Lily. In the bathroom, Ryan positioned Lily on a step stool in front of the mirror and pulled up a YouTube tutorial on his phone. He'd become surprisingly adept at hairstyling in the past weeks, though this particular braid looked complicated. Hold still, sweetie, he murmured, as he attempted to separate Lily's fine hair into sections. The first try was a disaster. The second wasn't much better. By the third attempt, Charlotte had appeared in the doorway, already dressed in her school uniform, watching with an expression that mixed amusement and exasperation. You're doing it wrong, she announced, stepping into the bathroom. Let me help. At 5 years old, Charlotte had better braiding skills than most adults. Ryan stepped back, watching with amazement as his oldest daughter efficiently transformed Lily's bedhead into a respectable approximation of the Disney princess's signature style. There, Charlotte said, securing the braid with an elastic. Now, you need the sparkly clips. Thank you, Charlie, Lily said, beaming at her reflection. She turned to Ryan. Daddy, can I have pancakes for breakfast? Pancakes on a Thursday? Ryan pretended to consider this outrageous request. I suppose that could be arranged, but only if you promise to eat some fruit too. Deal, Lily declared, jumping down from the stool and racing toward the kitchen. Charlotte lingered, straightening the hair supplies with her usual precision. You need to start waking up earlier, Daddy. Lily always wants her hair done first thing, and Emma takes forever to decide what to wear. Noted, Ryan said, smiling at his oldest daughter's practical nature. What would I do without your help, Charlie? A hint of a smile crossed Charlotte's serious face. You'd probably still be trying to figure out the coffee maker. She wasn't wrong. That first morning alone with the girls had been chaotic. Ryan had somehow expected 3 young children to sleep in on a weekday, giving him time to organize breakfast and prepare for school. Instead, he'd been awakened at 5:30 a.m. by Emma jumping on his bed, asking for pancakes in the shape of unicorns, while Lily cried because she couldn't find her favorite stuffed animal, and Charlotte informed him calmly that they needed to leave for school in exactly 47 minutes, and none of them had eaten or brushed their teeth. The learning curve had been steep, but Ryan was nothing if not adaptable. By the end of the first week, he'd established some semblance of a morning routine. By the second week, he'd mastered the logistics of 3 different drop-off locations: Charlotte at elementary school, Emma at her preschool, and Lily at her daycare preschool program. Now, in week 3, he was finally getting the hang of making lunches that the girls would actually eat, and remembering which day was PE, Charlotte needed sneakers, and which was art class, Emma needed her smock. In the kitchen, Ryan found Emma, already seated at the table, drawing in her sketchbook while still in her pajamas. "Emma Bean, you need to get dressed," Ryan reminded her, pulling out pancake ingredients. "School day, remember?" "I'm deciding what to wear," Emma said without looking up from her drawing. "It's very important." "You can decide while you're in your room," Ryan countered, starting the coffee maker. "Go on, Scoot. I need you dressed before pancakes are ready." Emma sighed dramatically, but gathered her art supplies and headed to her room, passing Diane in the hallway. Ryan's executive assistant had arrived exactly on time, as she did every morning at 6:30, to help with the morning rush before taking Ryan to the office. Hiring Diane to be his morning helper had been one of Ryan's better ideas. After the first disastrous day of solo parenting, he'd realized he needed support, and who better than the woman who had organized his professional life for 7 years? To his surprise, Diane had agreed immediately, seeming almost amused by the new dimension to her job. "Good morning," she greeted him, already reviewing the schedule on her tablet. "Charlotte has her dentist appointment at 4, Emma has ballet at 4:30, and Lily has her cardiology checkup at 5:15. I've arranged for separate cars to get them all where they need to be, and you're clear to leave the office by 3:30 to make it to Charlotte's appointment." "Thank you," Ryan said fervently, whisking pancake batter. "What would I do without you?" "Crash and burn, probably," Diane replied cheerfully, setting her tablet down and automatically starting to set the table for breakfast. "Also, the board wants to move up tomorrow's meeting to 7 a.m. to accommodate the Tokyo investors." Ryan winced. "That means I'd have to leave here by 6:30 at the latest." "Can handle the morning routine," Diane offered. "The girls and I are getting along famously, especially since I know how to make Emma's hair just curly enough but not too curly." Ryan smiled gratefully. "You're getting a massive bonus when this IPO goes through, just so you know." "I'm counting on it," Diane replied, then added more. "Seriously, the girls' overnight bags are packed for their weekend with Melissa. The flight to Boston is confirmed for tomorrow afternoon, and you'll pick them up at SFO on Sunday evening at 8:40 p.m. The reminder of the girls' first visit to see Melissa since she'd moved to Boston 3 weeks ago sent a complicated mix of emotions through Ryan. He was glad they would spend time with their mother, who video chatted with them every night, but was clearly struggling with the separation. At the same time, the thought of the empty house, silent without their laughter and chaos, made his chest tight. By 7:45 a.m., all 3 girls were dressed, fed, teeth brushed, and backpacks packed. Ryan stood at the front door, distributing hugs and last-minute reminders. "Charlie, dentist after school. Emma, don't forget your ballet shoes. Lily, be good for Miss Patricia, and remember, I'll be at your doctor's appointment this afternoon." "Will it hurt?" Lily asked, her small face suddenly anxious. Ryan knelt down to her level. "No, sweetheart. Dr. Chen just wants to listen to your special heart and make sure it's working perfectly. No pokes today, I promise." Lily nodded, seeming reassured. "And then ice cream?" Ryan laughed. "We'll see." Which all 3 girls knew meant yes. After the school drop-offs, Ryan finally arrived at the Nexus offices at 9:15 a.m. His executive team was already gathered in the conference room, having started the morning meeting without him. "Sorry, I'm late," Ryan said, sliding into his chair at the head of the table. "School drop-off took longer than expected." The team exchanged glances. Ryan's dramatic lifestyle change had been the subject of much speculation around the office. The CEO, who once arrived at 7 a.m. and left after 9 p.m., now kept strictly family-friendly hours, often taking calls from home after the girls' bedtime to make up for leaving the office by 5 p.m. most days. "We were just discussing the media schedule for next week," Kevin said, sliding a document across the table. "CNBC wants you live in studio on Tuesday morning, and the Wall Street Journal profile needs to be finalized by Thursday." Ryan scanned the schedule, mentally calculating how each commitment would impact his time with the girls. "The CNBC slot won't work. It's too early. I wouldn't be back in time for school drop-off. See if they can do a remote segment instead or move it to the afternoon." Kevin frowned. "Ryan, this is one of the most watched financial programs in the country. We can't dictate their schedule." "Then we decline and do Bloomberg instead," Ryan said firmly. "They've been asking for weeks, and their afternoon slot works better." The room fell silent. 6 months ago, Ryan would have rearranged heaven and earth to accommodate CNBC's request, recognizing its importance to their IPO visibility. Now he was casually declining because it conflicted with taking his daughters to school. "Is everything all right, Ryan?" asked Sandra, their chief marketing officer. "You seem distracted lately." Ryan looked around the table at the team that had helped him build Nexus from a scrappy startup into a company on the verge of going public with a multi-billion-dollar valuation. "Everything is fine," he said. "Better than fine, actually. But I've had some personal changes that have affected my schedule. As you all know by now, I recently discovered I have 3 daughters." A few people nodded. The rumors had spread quickly after Ryan had started leaving early for family obligations. What you may not know is that their mother recently accepted a job in Boston, and the girls are temporarily living with me full-time while she gets established there. So yes, my schedule has changed. And yes, sometimes I'll need to prioritize my children over a media appearance or an investor meeting. The silence that followed was uncomfortable until Diane, who had slipped into the room behind Ryan, spoke up. "The good news is that Ryan has finally learned to delegate," she said lightly. "After years of insisting he needed to handle everything personally, he's now empowering all of you to take on more responsibility. I'd call that growth as a leader, wouldn't you?" The tension in the room eased slightly, and the meeting continued, with adjusted expectations. By lunchtime, Ryan had cleared his immediate deliverables and was reviewing the quarterly projections when his phone rang. It was Lily's preschool. "Mr. Blackwood, this is Ms. Patricia from Little Explorers Preschool. Lily isn't feeling well. She says her chest hurts, and given her medical history, we thought it best to call you immediately." Ryan's blood ran cold. "I'll be right there." He was out the door within minutes, texting Diane to reschedule his afternoon and alert Dr. Chen that they might be coming in early. The drive to Lily's preschool felt agonizingly slow, even with his driver taking every shortcut possible. At the school, Ryan found Lily sitting quietly in the nurse's office, her face pale but not visibly distressed. "Daddy!" she called when she saw him holding out her arms. Ryan gathered her up, his heart racing as he felt her small body against his chest. "Hey, Princess. Miss Patricia says you're not feeling well." "My heart feels funny," Lily said, pointing to her chest. "It's doing the bumpy thing again." The bumpy thing was how Lily described the heart palpitations she occasionally experienced, usually harmless according to her cardiologist, but always concerning given her history. "We're going to go see Dr. Chen right now," Ryan assured, her already carrying her toward the exit. "She'll make sure everything's okay." In the car, Ryan held Lily on his lap, trying to project calm while his mind raced with worst-case scenarios. He'd read enough about tetralogy of Fallot to know that while most children did well after surgical repair, complications could occur. The thought of Lily in pain, of something happening to her heart, made his own heart constrict painfully. "Daddy, are you scared?" Lily asked, looking up at him with those perceptive blue eyes, his eyes. "A little," Ryan admitted, seeing no point in lying to her. "But Dr. Chen is very smart, and she knows exactly how to take care of your special heart." "I'm not scared," Lily declared, though her small hand clutched his tightly. I'm brave, remember? The bravest, Ryan agreed, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. At the hospital, they were taken directly to an exam room, bypassing the usual wait thanks to Dr. Chen's intervention. The cardiologist, a petite woman with a calm demeanor that Ryan had come to appreciate, examined Lily thoroughly before ordering an EKG. Just to be safe, she assured Ryan, who hovered anxiously nearby as a technician attached small electrodes to Lily's chest. Her pulse is a bit irregular, but that can happen occasionally with children who've had TOF repair. Most likely it's nothing serious, but I want to be thorough. The 30 minutes it took to complete the EKG and wait for Dr. Chen's assessment were among the longest of Ryan's life. He sat beside Lily's exam table, reading her favorite story from his phone, while silently bargaining with the universe. Take anything, his company, his wealth, his success, but leave this child healthy and whole. When Dr. Chen finally returned with a smile, Ryan felt weak with relief. Everything looks stable, she announced. Lily is experiencing some minor arrhythmia, which isn't uncommon. We'll adjust her medication slightly, but there's no cause for immediate concern. So she's okay? Ryan asked, needing the explicit reassurance. She's okay, Dr. Chen confirmed. But I'd like to move up her comprehensive evaluation. Instead of waiting until next month, let's do it next week, just to be thorough. Ryan nodded, already mentally rearranging his calendar. The IPO roadshow was scheduled to begin the following week, with Ryan slated to visit New York, Chicago, and London to court major investors. None of that mattered now. Whatever she needs, he said simply. Later that evening, after all three girls were finally asleep, Charlotte, after extracting a promise that Ryan would help with her science project the next day, Emma, after insisting on showing him every drawing she'd made that week, and Lily, after an extra story and reassurance that her heart was just fine, just special. Ryan sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, staring at an email he'd drafted to his executive team. The message outlined a significant change. Kevin would lead the IPO roadshow in Ryan's place. Ryan would participate in key meetings virtually, but would remain in San Francisco to be present for Lily's medical appointments and to maintain the girls' routine during this transitional period. 6 months ago, the idea of stepping back from the public-facing role of CEO during the most important moment in his company's history would have been unthinkable. Now, as he listened to the gentle breathing of his daughters through the baby monitor he'd installed just in case, Ryan knew it wasn't even a difficult decision. His phone chimed with a FaceTime call from Melissa. It was their nightly check-in after the girls were asleep, a new ritual that had evolved organically as they navigated co-parenting from opposite coasts. "Hey," Ryan answered, keeping his voice low. "They're all asleep. Good day at school, though Lily had a bit of a scare." Melissa's concerned face filled the screen. "What happened? Is she okay?" Ryan explained the day's events, watching as Melissa processed the information with the same worry he had felt. "Dr. Chen isn't concerned," she asked. "Not urgently, but she wants to do the comprehensive eval next week, instead of waiting." Melissa nodded, visibly calming. "That's good. Thorough is good." She paused, then added, "I could fly back for the evaluation. I have some vacation days I could use." "I think Lily would love that," Ryan said. "All the girls would. They're excited to see you this weekend, but it's hard for them, especially Lily. She asked for you today when she wasn't feeling well." A flash of pain crossed Melissa's face. "This is harder than I expected," she admitted. "The job is everything I hoped for, but being away from them, it's like missing a limb." "I know," Ryan said softly, though he didn't fully know. He'd only been a present father for a few weeks, while Melissa had been there from the beginning. "But you're doing what's best for their future, and they're doing okay. They miss you, but they're resilient." Melissa studied him through the screen. "And how are you doing, really?" Ryan considered the question. How was he doing? He was exhausted in a way he'd never experienced before. His body tired from early mornings and late nights, his mind constantly occupied with the logistics of raising 3 small children while running a company on the verge of an IPO. He was Worried about Lily's health, about Charlotte's occasional withdrawal, about Emma's sensitivity to any change in routine. He was learning to function on less sleep, less personal time, and far less control than he'd ever thought possible. And yet, "I'm good," he said, surprising himself with how true it felt. Better than good, actually. They're everything. Melissa, everything I never knew I was missing. Melissa smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Parenthood, the job you never knew you wanted until you had it. Exactly. Ryan paused, then added, "Thank you for giving me this chance with them, for trusting me with them." "They're your daughters too," Melissa said simply. "They deserve to know you. And from what I can see, you deserve to know them, too." After they hung up, Ryan sent the email to his executive team, then closed his laptop. He padded quietly down the hall, stopping first at Lily's room to check on her. She was sleeping peacefully, her favorite stuffed astronaut clutched against her chest, the nightlight casting star-shaped patterns across her ceiling. In the next room, Emma was sprawled across her bed, surrounded by sketches, her creative energy apparent even in sleep. And in the last room, Charlotte lay neatly under her covers, one hand resting on the book she'd been reading before bed. A daughter's, his responsibility, his joy. Ryan returned to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water, glancing at the refrigerator door now covered with Emma's artwork, Charlotte's perfect spelling tests, and the calendar tracking Lily's medication schedule. His life had been turned upside down in less than a month, transformed beyond recognition, and he wouldn't change a single thing. "But why does Ryan get to be at my birthday party if he's not part of our family?" Charlotte asked during a video call with Melissa, her voice carrying clearly from the living room to the kitchen where Ryan was preparing dinner. He froze, wooden spoon suspended over the pot of pasta he was stirring, straining to hear Melissa's response. The question was inevitable, he supposed. After 2 months of living primarily with Ryan, while Melissa established herself in Boston, the girls had begun asking more pointed questions about the arrangement. "Sweetie, it's complicated," Melissa replied, her voice slightly tinny through the tablet speakers. "Ryan is a very special friend who cares about all of you very much." "But Tommy's special friends don't live with him or pick him up from school," Charlotte persisted, her analytical mind refusing to accept the vague explanation. "And they don't go to doctor appointments or help with homework or come to family events at school." Ryan set down the spoon and moved closer to the doorway, still out of sight, but able to see Melissa's face on the tablet screen. She looked torn, her eyes meeting his over Charlotte's head as she realized he was listening. "Girls," Melissa said after a moment, addressing all 3 of her daughters, who were crowded around the tablet for their nightly call, "I think we need to have a family meeting when I come to visit next weekend. There's something important that Daddy Ryan and I need to talk to you about." "Daddy Ryan?" Emma repeated, her brow furrowing in confusion. "But you always just call him Ryan." Ryan stepped into the room then, making his presence known. "Dinner's almost ready, girls. 5 more minutes with Mom, okay?" Lily looked between Ryan and the tablet screen, her intuitive nature picking up on the sudden tension. "Are you mad at each other?" she asked, her small voice wobbling slightly. "No, sweetheart," Melissa said quickly. "Not at all. Ryan and I are friends, and we both love you 3 more than anything in the world." "Then why do you live so far away?" Lily pressed, asking the question that had clearly been bothering her. "Why can't we all live together like Katie's family?" Ryan and Melissa exchanged another look over the girls' heads, a silent communication passing between them. It was time. They couldn't continue with the partial truths and vague explanations. The girls deserved to know. "We'll talk about everything when Mom comes to visit," Ryan promised, kneeling down beside the girls. "But right now, those noodles are going to get mushy if we don't eat them soon." After dinner, baths, and bedtime, stories, Ryan called Melissa back once the girls were asleep. "I think we need to tell them," he said without preamble. "They're asking questions we can't keep dodging." Melissa sighed, looking tired on the screen. "I know, Charlotte's been asking me more specific questions for weeks. I should have realized she'd bring it up directly sooner or later." "What do you want to tell them?" Ryan asked. "The full truth?" I think we have to, Melissa replied. They're smart girls. They'll figure it out eventually, especially given how much they look like you. And I'd rather they hear it from us than piece it together themselves. How do we explain why I wasn't in their lives until now, Ryan asked, voicing the question that had been haunting him. How do I tell them I didn't know they existed, because I was too focused on my company to even take your calls? We tell them the truth, but in a way they can understand, Melissa said. That sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but that doesn't mean they don't love their children. Do you think they'll be angry? Ryan couldn't keep the worry from his voice. The relationships he'd built with the girls over the past 2 months felt precious and fragile. The thought of losing their trust terrified him more than any business setback ever had. I think they'll have a lot of feelings, Melissa answered honestly. Charlotte might be angry at first. Emma will probably have 1,000 questions, and Lily, she paused. Lily might take it the hardest in some ways. She forms deep attachments. Ryan nodded, thinking of how Lily sought him out for comfort, how she'd taken to climbing into his lap in the evenings, how she called for him specifically when she had nightmares. I don't want to hurt them, Melissa. I know you don't, she said softly, but they deserve the truth, and Ryan, whatever happens, we'll handle it together. The week that followed was tense with anticipation. Ryan found himself watching the girls more closely, treasuring their easy acceptance of him in their lives, and wondering how that might change once they knew the full story. He took extra care with their routines, saying yes to one more story at bedtime, making special breakfasts, treasuring each moment of their uncomplicated affection. Melissa arrived on Friday evening, and the girls were ecstatic, running to her at the airport with squeals of delight. Ryan stood back, watching as she gathered all three into her arms, her eyes closing briefly as she held them close. Despite the complexity of their situation, he couldn't help but admire her. Her strength, her devotion to their daughters, her willingness to give him a chance to be part of their lives, despite the pain he'd caused her. That night, after the girls were asleep, Ryan and Melissa sat at the kitchen table planning their approach for the family meeting scheduled for the next morning. We should keep it simple, Melissa advised. Direct but age-appropriate. They don't need all the details of our relationship or the breakup. Ryan nodded, running a hand through his hair. What about the fact that I didn't know about them? How do we explain that without making you the bad? Guy or me sound like I didn't care enough to stay in touch. We say that there was a miscommunication, Melissa suggested. That I tried to tell you about the pregnancy, but you were very busy with work and didn't get the messages. It's the truth, just simplified. And then what? I just happened to see you at a bus stop and suddenly wanted to be a father. Ryan shook his head. It sounds so accidental, like I only care about them because I stumbled across them by chance. Isn't that what happened? Melissa asked, though her tone was gentle rather than accusatory. Yes. But Ryan struggled to articulate his feelings. What I want them to know is that the moment I saw them, everything changed, that it wasn't just obligation or curiosity, that seeing them awakened something in me I didn't know was there. Melissa studied him for a long moment. Then tell them that, she said simply. In words they can understand. Tell them what they mean to you. The next morning, the family gathered in the living room after breakfast. The girls sensed the importance of the moment, settling onto the couch with uncharacteristic quietness, their eyes moving between the two adults. Girls, Melissa began, sitting on the coffee table in front of them. Remember when you asked why Ryan is such a special part of our lives, even though I've always told you it was just the four of us as a family? Three solemn heads nodded in unison. The truth is, Melissa continued, taking a deep breath, Ryan is more than just a special friend. He's your father. A moment of silence followed, each girl processing the information in her own way. Charlotte's brow furrowed deeply, her analytical mind working to reconcile this new information with what she'd previously understood. Emma's eyes widened, darting between Ryan and Melissa, as if seeing them in a new light. Lily simply stared at Ryan, her expression unreadable. My real daddy? Emma asked finally, breaking the silence. Like how Zoe has a daddy who lives in a different house? Yes, sweetheart, Melissa confirmed. Ryan is your biological father. That means you got parts of who you are from him, just like you got parts from me. That's why you all have his smile and his eyes." Charlotte, ever the practical one, cut straight to the heart of the matter. "If you're our dad, why weren't you with us before? Didn't you want us?" The directness of the question hit Ryan like a physical blow. He moved to sit beside Melissa on the coffee table, making sure he was at eye level with the girls. "I didn't know about you," he said honestly, his voice thick with emotion. "Before I saw you at the bus stop with your mom that day, I didn't know I had 3 amazing daughters." "How could you not know?" Charlotte pressed, skepticism clear in her voice. "Mom knew." Melissa jumped in. "That's my fault too, Charlie. I tried to tell your dad that I was going to have a baby, have you? But he was very busy with his company and he didn't get my messages. By the time Lily was born, I thought it was too late, and I decided to raise you 3 by myself." "Until he saw us at the bus stop," Charlotte filled in, her quick mind connecting the dots. "And then he knew we were his kids because we look like him." "Exactly," Ryan confirmed, amazed as always by Charlotte's perceptiveness. "The moment I saw you 3 with your mom, I knew. I could see myself in your faces, in the way Charlotte thinks so carefully about everything, in Emma's creativity, in Lily's determination." "Is that why you wanted to be with us?" Emma asked. "Because we look like you?" "No, Emma Bean," Ryan said, using his special nickname for her. "I wanted to be with you because the moment I knew you were my daughters, I felt something I'd never felt before. Like a piece of my heart that had been missing suddenly appeared. I wanted to know you, to be part of your lives, to be your dad." "Jessica, but you didn't love us before you saw us," Charlotte stated flatly, her voice holding an edge of hurt that made Ryan's chest ache. "I didn't know you," Ryan corrected gently. "But if I had known, I would have loved you from the very beginning. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Charlie. Big mistakes. My biggest mistake was not being there when you were born, not seeing your first steps or hearing your first words. I can't get those moments back, but I promise you, I'm here now and I want to be your dad for every moment that comes next." Emma, always quick to embrace new ideas, seemed to accept this explanation. "So now we have a mom and a dad like regular kids?" "Yes," Melissa confirmed, "though our family might look a little different because Mom lives in Boston right now, and Dad lives here in San Francisco. Are you going to marry each other?" Emma asked hopefully, causing both adults to exchange a startled glance. "No, sweetie," Melissa answered carefully. "Ryan and I are not going to get married, but we are both your parents, and we both love you very much." Throughout the conversation, Lily had remained unusually quiet, her eyes fixed on Ryan with an intensity that made him nervous. Finally, she slid off the couch and walked over to him, standing directly in front of him. "Are you really my daddy?" she asked, her small voice serious. "Forever and ever, not just for now?" Ryan felt tears prick at his eyes. "Yes, Lily Pad, I'm really your daddy, forever and ever." Lily studied him for another long moment, then threw her arms around his neck in a fierce hug. "I knew it," she whispered against his ear. "I always wanted it to be you." Ryan held her close, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. Over Lily's shoulder, he saw Emma join the hug, her acceptance as immediate and wholehearted as everything she did. Charlotte remained on the couch, her expression still troubled, still processing. Melissa reached out to her oldest daughter. "It's okay to have feelings about this, Charlie. It's big news and you don't have to pretend it's all okay right away." Charlotte nodded, her eyes suspiciously bright. "Did you always know we would meet him someday?" "I didn't know," Melissa admitted. "But I hoped that somehow, someday you would get to know your father. Every child deserves that chance." Charlotte seemed to consider this, then looked directly at Ryan. "If you're really our dad, does that mean we'll get your last name too? Like I'll be Charlotte Blackwood instead of Charlotte Taylor?" The question surprised both adults. They hadn't discussed names yet, hadn't thought that far ahead. "Would you want that?" Ryan asked carefully, conscious of not making promises he couldn't keep. Charlotte shrugged, aiming for casual, though her expression remained serious. "Maybe. I'd have to think about it." "There's no rush," Melissa assured her. "These are all things we can figure out together, as a family. The important thing is that you girls know the truth now. That you have two parents who love you very much, even if we don't live in the same house or even the same city. Emma, practical in her own way, immediately jumped to logistics. But who will we live with? Will we stay with Daddy or go back to Boston with you? Melissa and Ryan exchanged glances. They had discussed this at length the night before, weighing all factors including Lily's medical care, the girls' adjustment, and their own work situations. For now, Melissa explained, you'll keep living here with your dad while I get everything ready in Boston. I've found us a house there with a big backyard and rooms for each of you. Once school ends for the summer, you'll come to Boston and stay with me for a while. And then what? Charlotte asked, always needing to understand the complete plan. Then, we'll figure out a schedule that works for everyone, Ryan said. Maybe you'll spend part of the year in Boston with Mom and part here with me. We'll make sure you have time with both of us. But what about Lily's heart doctor? Charlotte asked, ever the protector of her youngest sister. She needs to see Dr. Chen. There are excellent heart doctors in Boston too, Melissa assured her. But you're right that consistency is important. That's one of the things your dad, and I will be very careful about planning. The conversation continued, with the girls asking questions that ranged from practical concerns about holidays and birthdays to more philosophical wonderings about why some families lived together and others didn't. Through it all, Ryan was struck by their resilience, their ability to absorb this life-changing information and begin to incorporate it into their understanding of the world. When the initial discussion wound down, the girls dispersed to process, in their own ways. Emma immediately began drawing, creating a picture of their newly defined family. Lily stuck close to Ryan, as if afraid he might disappear now that the truth was out. Charlotte retreated to her room with a book, needing space to think. Later that afternoon, Ryan found Charlotte sitting alone on the back porch, her expression pensive as she watched birds at the feeder he'd installed at her request. Mind if I join you? He asked, respecting her need for space. Charlotte shrugged, which Ryan had learned meant okay in preteen speak, even though she was only 5. He sat beside her on the steps, not speaking, just providing company. After several minutes, Charlotte broke the silence. Mom has all our baby pictures, she said. Did you want to see them? There's one of me when I was really little, sitting in a bucket. Mom says it's funny. I'd love to see them, Ryan said, softly recognizing the olive branch for what it was. All of them, if you'd show me. Charlotte nodded. I'll ask Mom to help me show you before she goes back to Boston. Thank you, Charlie. That means a lot to me. They sat in silence for another moment before Charlotte asked, Are you sad that you missed when we were babies? The question caught Ryan off guard with its perceptiveness. Yes, he admitted. Very sad. It's one of the things I regret most in my life. Charlotte considered this. Mom says regret is when you wish you could change something you did in the past. That's right. What would you change if you could go back? Ryan thought carefully before answering, knowing the importance of honesty with this perceptive child. I would answer your mom's calls. I would listen when she tried to tell me about you. I would be there when you were born and for every day after that. Charlotte nodded, seemingly satisfied with his answer. Well, you're here now. And Lily really needs a dad. She gets scared more than me and Emma. I've noticed that, Ryan said, touched by Charlotte's concern for her sister. I promise I'll always be here when Lily needs me. When any of you need me. Even if your company needs you too, Charlotte asked, zeroing in on the conflict that had shaped their early lives without them even knowing it. Even then, Ryan promised. You girls come first now, always. Charlotte seemed to accept this, at least provisionally. She stood up, brushing off her pants with the precise movements that reminded Ryan so much of himself. I'm going to go help Mom make lunch, she announced. You can come too if you want. It wasn't a full embrace of their new reality, but it was acceptance, a willingness to include him in the family activities that had previously been just for her and her mother and sisters. For Ryan, it felt like winning the most important negotiation of his life. I'd like that very much, he said, following his oldest daughter inside to where Melissa was showing Emma how to make sandwiches while Lily arranged fruit on a plate, her little tongue poking out in concentration. His family, complicated, unexpected, and more precious than anything he'd ever built. That evening, after the girls were asleep, Ryan and Melissa sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, debriefing the eventful day. "They took it better than I expected," Melissa admitted. "Especially Lily. I thought she might be confused, but she seemed almost relieved." Ryan nodded, remembering Lily's whispered words. "I always wanted it to be you." I think on some level she might have suspected. Kids are intuitive, especially about family connections. "Charlotte will take longer to fully accept it," Melissa said. "She remembers more of the early years, the times when she asked about her dad and I had to give her partial answers." "I'll be patient," Ryan promised. "However long it takes, I'm not going anywhere." Melissa studied him over the rim of her wine glass. "You've really changed, Ryan. The man I knew 5 years ago wouldn't have put his company second to anything, let alone reorganized his entire life around 3 children he barely knew." "The man you knew 5 years ago was an idiot," Ryan said simply. "He had no idea what really mattered. And now? Now I know that nothing, not Nexus, not the IPO, not any amount of success or money, matters more than those 3 little girls sleeping upstairs. They're my legacy, Melissa, not some tech company that will be obsolete in a decade." Melissa's expression softened. "You're a good father, Ryan. Despite the late start, you've taken to it remarkably well. I had a good example to follow," he said, acknowledging her years of solo parenting. "You created 3 incredible human beings. I'm just grateful to be part of their lives now." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the tension of the past gradually giving way to a new understanding, a partnership built around the children they both loved. "So what happens next?" Melissa asked eventually. "With the custody arrangement, the living situation, all of it?" "Whatever's best for the girls," Ryan said immediately. "Maybe we should talk to a family therapist, get some professional guidance on how to make the transitions as smooth as possible for them." Melissa nodded. "That's a good idea. And what about you? Are you really prepared for the long haul? For school concerts and chicken pox and teen drama and everything else that comes with raising 3 girls?" Ryan smiled, thinking of Charlotte's penetrating questions, Emma's boundless creativity and Lily's brave heart. "I can't imagine anything I'd rather do," he said truthfully. "They're my daughters. Where they go, I go." As they continued planning the practical details of their shared parenting future, Ryan felt a sense of peace he'd never experienced before. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be logistics to work out, emotional hurdles to overcome, and the constant challenge of balancing work and family. But for the first time, he was certain of his priorities, certain of what truly mattered. The truth was out, and with it came not the loss he'd feared, but the foundation of something stronger, a real family built on honesty, commitment, and love. Not the family he'd planned, perhaps, but exactly the family he needed. 6 months had transformed Ryan Blackwood's life beyond recognition. The man who once measured success in stock prices and funding rounds now counted it in successfully braided hair science projects completed on time, and the sound of 3 young voices calling him Daddy. Nexus Tech had gone public in a highly successful IPO, with Kevin leading most of the roadshow while Ryan participated virtually from San Francisco. The business press had been puzzled by the CEO's sudden step back from the spotlight, but Ryan had simply released a statement about balancing professional responsibilities with family obligations, leaving the details private. Today, as he stood in the bustling San Francisco International Airport arrivals area, none of that mattered. He checked his watch again, then the flight status board. Melissa's flight from Boston had landed 20 minutes ago. Any moment now, she and the girls would emerge through the security doors, returning from their month-long summer stay in Boston, the longest month of Ryan's life. He'd visited twice during their absence, flying to Boston for long weekends, marveling at the beautiful home Melissa had created there, a Victorian with a backyard and separate bedrooms for each girl, decorated to their individual tastes. He'd taken comfort in knowing they were thriving, adjusting well to their new dual-home reality. But his house in San Francisco had felt cavernous without them, empty in a way his sleek penthouse never had. "Daddy!" The cry came from Emma, who spotted him first and broke away from Melissa, running full tilt through the crowd. Ryan knelt down, opening his arms just in time to catch her as she launched herself at him. Charlotte and Lily were close behind, with Melissa following at a more sedate pace, managing their carry-on luggage. "I missed you this much," Emma declared, stretching her arms as wide as they would go. "I missed you more," Lily insisted, squeezing into the hug. Charlotte, at 6 now and increasingly conscious of appearing grown-up in public, approached more calmly but still allowed herself to be folded into the group embrace. "How was the flight?" Ryan asked as he stood, lifting Lily into his arms while keeping his other arm around Emma. "Long," Charlotte reported, "but we had tablets, and Mum let us have ginger ale." "The lady next to me had a dog in a bag," Lily added excitedly. "A tiny one that fit under the seat." Ryan grinned, drinking in their faces, noting small changes after just a month apart. Charlotte's hair was shorter, cut in a neat bob that made her look older. Emma had new glasses with purple frames that magnified her expressive eyes. And Lily, was she taller? Had her face lost some of its baby roundness? "You all look wonderful," he said, then looked up to include Melissa, who had reached them with the luggage cart. "All of you." Melissa did look good, relaxed and confident in a way she hadn't been during the stressful transition to Boston. The leadership position clearly suited her, as did the East Coast lifestyle. The girls were perfect travelers, she reported, smiling at their daughters with obvious pride, even with the delay in Chicago. "I'm not surprised," Ryan said, meaning it. Their daughters continually amazed him with their resilience and adaptability. "Let's get your bags and head home. I've got a surprise waiting." "What kind of surprise?" Emma asked immediately, bouncing with excitement. "If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise," Ryan teased, guiding them toward the baggage claim. An hour later, they pulled up to Ryan's house in No Valley, their San Francisco home, as the girls now called it. As he helped unload luggage from the SUV, Ryan felt a strange nervousness. Would they notice the changes? Would they approve? "Why are there balloons on the mailbox?" Charlotte asked, observant as always. "Part of the surprise," Ryan answered cryptically, unlocking the front door and standing back to let them enter first. The girls rushed in, then stopped abruptly in the entryway, their eyes widening as they took in the transformation. The formerly minimalist living room had been completely redecorated with comfortable furniture, colorful throw pillows, and framed photographs covering the walls, dozens of them, chronicling the girls' lives from infancy to the present. "Our baby pictures!" Emma exclaimed, rushing to examine a particularly adorable photo of herself at age 2, covered in finger paint. "Where did you get these?" Charlotte asked, turning to her father with surprise. "Your mum helped," Ryan explained, catching Melissa's eye with a smile of thanks. She had provided the digital archives of the girls' early years, allowing him to create this visual history of the life he had missed. "I wanted you to know that even though I wasn't there for these moments, they're still part of our family story." But the living room was just the beginning. Ryan led them through the house, revealing each changed space. The formal dining room had been converted into an art studio for Emma, with easels, organized supplies, and perfect natural light. Charlotte's bedroom now featured built-in bookshelves filled with new titles she had mentioned wanting to read, along with a cozy window seat for reading. Lily's room had been transformed into a space-themed wonderland, with constellations painted on the ceiling that glowed in the dark. "It lights up at night," Lily gasped, staring upward in wonder. "Just like real stars," Ryan confirmed. "And look." He pressed a button on a remote and a small projector activated, casting moving planets across the walls. "Your own planetarium." Lily's face lit up with pure joy. "It's perfect. Thank you, Daddy." But the biggest surprise waited in the backyard. Ryan opened the French doors from the kitchen, revealing the formerly plain space now transformed with a wooden play structure, a small garden plot with each girl's name on a section, and, most significantly, a treehouse built around the large oak tree. "A treehouse!" Emma shrieked, already running toward it. "Careful on the ladder," Ryan called, following behind as all three girls raced to explore the new addition. He joined Melissa on the back porch, watching their daughters climb excitedly into their new hideaway. "You've been busy," she remarked, clearly impressed by the extent of the renovations. "I had a lot of time on my hands without them here," Ryan admitted. "The house felt too empty, too. Not theirs. And now? Now it's a home," he said simply. "Their home. At least the home they have when they're with me." Melissa nodded, understanding the distinction. They need that. Consistency, belonging, spaces that reflect who they are. In both places. They watched the girls exploring the treehouse, their excited chatter filtering down as they discovered the built-in benches, the small bookshelf, the battery-powered lanterns for evening adventures. "You know," Melissa said, after a moment, "when we first discussed this arrangement, them splitting time between us, I was terrified it would damage them somehow, that they'd feel divided, torn between two worlds." "And now?" Ryan asked, genuinely wanting her assessment. As their mother, as the person who had raised them from birth, her opinion of what was best for the girls mattered deeply to him. "Now I think they're incredibly lucky," Melissa said, surprising him. "They have two parents who adore them, two homes where they're cherished, two cities to explore. Most kids with divorced parents don't get nearly such a positive experience." "We're not divorced," Ryan pointed out. "We were never married." "True," Melissa acknowledged, "but in some ways that's made it easier. We never had that period of anger and hurt to work through in front of them. We started our co-parenting journey from a place of, I don't know, mutual respect." Ryan nodded, grateful for her perspective and for the remarkably smooth partnership they had developed. "Speaking of co-parenting, I have one more surprise. For you, actually." Melissa looked at him with surprise. "For me?" Ryan led her back inside to his home office, which had also been redesigned. In addition to his own workspace, there was now a second desk set up by the window, with a comfortable chair and a high-end laptop. "What's this?" Melissa asked, running her hand along the desk's surface. "Your workspace," Ryan explained. "For when you're in town and need to connect with your team in Boston. I know you mentioned having to work during some of your visits, and hotel business centers aren't exactly comfortable for long sessions." Melissa looked genuinely touched. "Ryan, that's incredibly thoughtful. Thank you." "We're partners in this," he said simply. "Whatever makes it easier for you to be here more often is worth it. For the girls." "For the girls," she agreed, though something in her expression suggested she was processing more than just his words. The sound of small feet thundering down the hallway interrupted any further conversation as the girls burst into the office, full of questions about dinner plans and whether they could sleep in the treehouse and a dozen other urgent matters that apparently couldn't wait another minute. The evening passed in a blur of unpacking, pizza delivery, bath time, with new bubble, bath Ryan had stocked in anticipation of their return, and bedtime stories. By 9 o'clock, all three girls were tucked into their beds, exhausted from travel and excitement. Ryan found Melissa in the kitchen, making tea. "I put your bags in the guest room," he said. "Unless you'd prefer a hotel, I should have asked earlier." "The guest room is perfect," Melissa assured him. "I was planning to stay through the weekend if that works for you. Give them a few days to settle back in before I head to Boston." "Stay as long as you like," Ryan said, meaning it. "They've missed you, and honestly I could use the help getting back into the school routine. Charlotte has that new after-school science program starting Tuesday, and Emma's art class changed times." Melissa smiled, handing him a mug of tea. "Co-parenting at its finest. I'll help with the schedule before I leave." They moved to the living room, settling onto the new, comfortable sofa that had replaced Ryan's former sleek leather furniture. For a few minutes they sat, in companionable silence, sipping tea and decompressing from the busy day. "I've been thinking," Melissa said finally, setting down her mug, "about our arrangement." Ryan felt a flicker of anxiety. "What about it?" "It's working well. Better than I expected. But the travel is hard on them. A month here, a month there, it's a lot of upheaval, especially once school is in full swing." Ryan nodded, having had similar concerns. What are you thinking? What if... Melissa hesitated, then continued more confidently. What if I transferred back to San Francisco? My company has an office here and they've mentioned being open to it. The girls could have one primary home base with both of us nearby. We could still do Boston for summers and school breaks, keep the house there. Ryan stared at her, processing the suggestion. You'd do that? Give up the promotion, the position you worked so hard for? I wouldn't be giving it up entirely, Melissa clarified. I'd keep the title and responsibilities, just work remotely with quarterly trips to headquarters. And yes, I would do that. For them. For all of us. The implication in those last words hung in the air between them, unaddressed but unmistakable. Over the past 6 months, as they navigated co-parenting and cross-country logistics, something had shifted between them. The anger and hurt had faded, replaced by mutual respect and increasingly genuine friendship. I think that would be wonderful for the girls, Ryan said carefully. Having both parents in the same city, a consistent home base, stability in their schools and activities. But, Melissa prompted, sensing his hesitation. No buts, Ryan assured her. Just, I want to make sure you're not sacrificing your career for this arrangement. That was my mistake 5 years ago, putting career above everything else. I don't want you to swing to the opposite extreme. Melissa smiled, touched by his concern. I'm not. This would be a balanced choice, not a sacrifice. And honestly, after being in Boston, I've realized how much I miss California. The weather, the culture, our friends here. Ryan nodded, relief washing through him. The thought of having the girls full-time in San Francisco, with Melissa nearby for regular co-parenting, seemed like the ideal solution, one he hadn't dared hope for. Then I think it's a great idea, he said. The girls will be thrilled. I'll start the conversation with my company next week, Melissa decided. See what kind of timeline we're looking at. Another comfortable silence fell between them, broken only when Ryan spoke again, his voice thoughtful. You know, when I saw you and the girls at that bus stop 6 months ago, I never imagined we'd end up here. I was terrified you'd shut me out completely and I would have deserved it. I considered it, Melissa admitted, for about 5 minutes. But then I saw how the girls responded to you, especially Lily. Something in her recognized you instantly. After that, keeping you apart seemed cruel, regardless of our past. Thank you, Ryan said simply, for giving me the chance to know them, to be their father. They needed you, Melissa said. I didn't fully realize how much until I saw you. Together. The conversation drifted to more practical matters. School supplies, Charlotte's upcoming dentist appointment, the results of Lily's latest cardiology checkup, excellent, with no concerns for the foreseeable future. It was the mundane stuff of parenting, but Ryan found himself enjoying every moment of it. This shared responsibility, this partnership that centered entirely around the well-being of their daughters. The next morning, a Saturday, brought beautiful weather and high energy from the girls, who insisted on breakfast in the treehouse. Ryan and Melissa worked together in the kitchen, preparing a picnic-style meal to carry outside. We should do something special today, Ryan suggested as he sliced fruit. Maybe the exploratorium? The girls have been asking to go back. Actually, Melissa said, there's something else I was thinking of, something important. Her serious tone caught Ryan's attention. What is it? The girl's birthday is next month, she reminded him. Their first birthday with you in their lives. Ryan nodded, already planning elaborate celebrations. I know. I've been researching party venues and themes. Charlotte wants something science-related, Emma mentioned an art party, and Lily keeps changing her mind between space and unicorns. Melissa smiled at his enthusiasm. Those all sound wonderful, but I was thinking of something else too. Something more official. Official? Legal recognition, Melissa clarified. Adding your name to their birth certificates. Giving them your last name if that's something you want. Making your paternity official in every way. Ryan set down the knife he'd been using, stunned by the offer. You'd do that, let them take my name. They are Blackwoods, Melissa said simply. They have your DNA, your smile, your determination. They should have your name too if you want that. I do, Ryan said immediately. his voice thick with emotion. More than anything. But what about you? They've been tailors their whole lives. I was thinking we could hyphenate, Melissa suggested. Taylor Blackwood, honoring both sides of their heritage. Ryan felt overwhelmed by the gesture, by all it represented. Taylor Blackwood, he repeated, testing the sound of it. It's perfect. The paperwork could be filed before their birthday, Melissa explained. They could tell the girls together, make it part of their birthday celebration, not just turning another year older, but officially becoming Taylor Blackwoods. As they carried breakfast out to 3 excited girls already settled in the treehouse, Ryan felt a sense of completion he'd never experienced before. 6 months ago, he had been a successful CEO with an empty personal life, a man who measured his worth in stock options and funding rounds. Now he was a father, a co-parent, a man whose greatest achievements napped in princess beds and drew pictures of their family with crayons. "Daddy, come sit by me," Lily called, patting the space beside her on the treehouse bench. "I saved you a spot." Ryan climbed into the treehouse, settling beside his youngest daughter, while Melissa distributed breakfast to Emma and Charlotte. Lily leaned against him, her small body warm and trusting. "I'm glad we're all together," she said simply, her blue eyes, his eyes, gazing up at him with complete acceptance. "Me too, Lilypad," Ryan said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders and looking across at Melissa, who was helping Emma pour juice without spilling. She caught his glance and smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Charlotte was telling me about the science fair project you helped her with," Melissa said, passing a plate of fruit to Ryan. "Sounds like you two make quite the team." "Dad's good at science," Charlotte confirmed, her initial reserve having melted in the month since learning Ryan was her father. "But he's not as good at art as Mom." "Very true," Ryan agreed easily. "Fortunately, Emma's teaching me. Right, Emma Bean?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "I showed Daddy how to mix colors. He's getting better." The conversation flowed naturally, 3 excited girls talking over each other to share stories from their month in Boston, plans for the new school year, ideas for the treehouse. Ryan and Melissa exchanged glances occasionally, their silent communication becoming more fluent with each passing month of co-parenting. Later, as the girls played in the backyard, Ryan and Melissa sat on the porch swing, watching them. "You know what Charlotte asked me last week?" Melissa said, her voice thoughtful. "She wanted to know if you and I would ever live in the same house like her friend Katie's parents." Ryan tensed slightly. "What did you tell her?" "The truth," Melissa said, "that we're not a couple, but we're partners in raising them. That families come in all configurations, and ours works well just as it is." Ryan nodded, relieved by her diplomatic answer. The thought of their relationship evolving beyond co-parenting had crossed his mind more frequently lately, but he'd been careful not to rush things, not to risk the delicate balance they'd achieved. "She seemed to accept that," Melissa continued. "But then Lily chimed in and said, 'But you like each other, right?' And I realized I wasn't sure how to answer that." Ryan turned to look at her directly. "What did you say?" "I said yes, we like each other very much," Melissa replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "That we're friends who care about each other because we both love them. Was that accurate?" There was a vulnerability in her question that Ryan hadn't heard before, a tentative opening that made his heart beat faster. "It's accurate," he confirmed, "but maybe not complete." Melissa's eyes widened slightly. What would make it complete? Ryan chose his words carefully, maybe acknowledging that people change, that the man I was 5 years ago and the woman you were then, they're not who we are now, and maybe these new versions of ourselves, maybe they fit together differently than before. "And how would they fit?" Melissa asked, her voice soft but steady. "I don't know yet," Ryan admitted, "but I'd like to find out. Slowly, with no pressure and no expectations, just seeing where it leads." Melissa was quiet for a moment, watching the girls playing tag around the oak tree. "I'd like that too," she said finally, slowly. From the yard, Lily's voice called out, "Mom, Dad, come play with us. We need more people for hide and seek." Ryan stood, offering his hand to Melissa. She took it, allowing him to help her up from the swing. Their hands remained linked for a moment longer than necessary, a small connection that felt significant in its simplicity. "Coming, girls," Melissa called, releasing Ryan's hand but staying close beside him as they walked into the yard together. As Emma excitedly explained the boundaries for their game, Ryan looked around at the family that had come into his life so unexpectedly. Charlotte, serious and thoughtful, already planning the best hiding spots. Emma, creative and expressive, demonstrating how they would count to 20. Lily, brave and determined despite her health challenges, jumping with excitement at the game. And Melissa, who had raised these amazing girls alone for 5 years and had still found the generosity to welcome him into their lives. "Dad's counting first," Lily declared, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward the tree designated as home base. "Close your eyes and count to 20, Emma instructed. "No peeking." Ryan obediently covered his eyes and began to count, listening to the sound of small feet scampering away, of suppressed giggles and whispered strategy. He had built a technology company valued at billions, had seen his name on the cover of Forbes, had achieved the kind of success most entrepreneurs only dreamed of, but nothing compared to this moment, to the simple joy of playing hide and seek with his daughters on a sunny Saturday morning, to the knowledge that they were his family, now and forever, regardless of what the future held. "Ready or not, here I come," Ryan called, opening his eyes to begin his search for the 4 most important people in his world. And for the first time in his life, Ryan Blackwood was exactly where he was meant to be.